Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'll be doing the August Q&A video, and I'm going to get right to it because I have some things I still want to do tonight. I'm kind of on a time limit, so I'm going to hurry through. My niece had actually gotten these questions for me. I have not even had the chance to look at them, so I'll do my best to answer them the best I can. Let's get right to it. The first questions are from last month's Q&A. The Faithful Farmer Mama says, "Way to go, Mary. I too adore crime shows, especially the cold cases. You should watch Cold Justice Files." I wanted to comment on that. I had mentioned I love, crime shows, and I also like kind of old-fashioned shows like Downton Abbey and Anne of Green Gables, that sort of show. And I got so many of you gave me recommendations on what to watch. So I was so impressed with that. I actually started out by watching Poldark, and I just finished it last night, and it was such a good show. So many of you recommended that. Thank you for it. It was probably one of my favorites. I just loved every moment of it, and I'm kind of sad that it's over with. But I'll definitely check out some of these others that some of you mentioned. Maybe a crime one next. I may have to check out this Cold Justice Files, but thanks for all the recommendations. I appreciate that. Her question here is, or a couple questions, what time do you start your day and do you drink coffee? I usually set my alarm right now for 6:30. That is just on a regular, if I have nothing, special that I need to get up for. To me, that's it feels right to get up around that time. Plus my son, my youngest son, still going to school, so I need to make sure I'm up to, get him up too. But depending on what I'd have going on, I probably get up earlier, and if there's no school, I may even sleep in. And no, I don't drink coffee. Paula Haynes says, "I watch a couple of detective shows on YouTube called Midsummer Murders and Rosemary and Thyme. Both are British and very good. May need to check those out too. I always enjoy your videos, and I bought a couple of your products that I love. Thank you for that. I had a bit of trouble with one of the stencils pulling off the underpaint, but it still turned out good. Sorry to hear that. I know, trying to think, I think that has happened already for me, but it's really important to make sure if you do a stencil, which I don't do a lot of stencils, I usually, just do the decals, but I have done stencils already. And it always, just make sure your base paint, where you're applying your stencil to, is on there pretty good, because I can imagine it can pull up some paint. Now I know if I do use a stencil and then I, pull it up after I'm finished painting it, I usually pull it up while the paint is still wet that I just applied, because if you wait until it's dry, you're very likely to kind of pull up some of your letters, if that makes sense. I know you really have to be careful if you pull the stencil up while the paint's still wet, so you don't, smear it all over the place, but it's just worth it to me to get it off of there before the paint dries. And is there a place to share our photos of our finished pieces we had made with your stencils and vinyls? That's a good question. I admit, guys, I am just not such an Instagram fan. I know that's just terrible to most people probably, because everybody's into Instagram these days, but I've just never really gotten that much into it. I do post some on there, more than I ever did, but I know, if you would probably use the hashtag the White Cottage Company, I could, look at your projects. I would love that. If you want to do that, go ahead and tag them. Make sure to put the White Cottage Company, because I think there's sometimes, and I'll use it too, the hashtag just White Cottage Company, and there's all kinds of different ones that come up. I know there's another company out maybe in Massachusetts or somewhere that is also called the White Cottage Company, and I know they use that hashtag a lot too, so some of our things kind of run together, and it's even kind of the same style, so I'm sure people kind of confuse us at times, but I did check that out on Instagram, and if you use, put the word "the" in front of White Cottage Company, I'm pretty sure that will kind of narrow it more down to just some of my, products. So Heather Miller says, "I love following you and just wanted to let you know that I have lived all of my life on Prince Edward Island, home of Anne of Green Gables." Oh, that's awesome. I'm almost envious. I just think that place looks so amazing in the movies, and I wonder if it's actually that pretty in real life. I'm sure it is, but I would love to visit someday. So moving on to the next one here was the hutch makeover. Barbara Grace says, can you please explain straight screws? I don't understand the difference to any other screw. While I was editing that video, I thought that did not sound right to say, you know, about the straight screws, because what I meant, I mean, all screws are straight, as in they go straight in and out or whatever, but I was talking about the screw head, like the screwdriver you would use to, the hutch I had been doing had, you know, old screws, and back in the day they would just have like the straight, where you used a straight screwdriver to, you know, unscrew or, you know, screw them in. And nowadays, you know, you have the Phillip and the square and all these different heads that are much easier to work with. So hopefully that makes sense. That's what I was talking about. Debbie Jessie says, do you ever check the value of an antique before you repurpose it? I have maybe at times already, but this hutch that I had redone, which it was for someone else, it wasn't my own, we have lots of pieces like that in our area. I'm not sure, is it like a, maybe some, you know, of course I grew up Amish, you know, there's a lot of Amish in the area. I think, you know, having a cupboard like that or a piece like that, just every household has them. So around here they're just a dime a dozen. They're not really that rare or anything. So I'm not sure, yeah, I don't know what the value would have been of that hutch. As far as I know, the people that, you know, purchased it, they got it at an auction. And I'm almost thinking they probably gave under 100 or around 100 maybe for it. I know she had told me, but I forget the actual price, but I'm not sure what it would be valued at. The next question here, Shirley Sankin says, turned out beautiful. Thank you. Did you sand off the contact paper glue? I don't think it actually left a residue. I know sometimes it does, but I don't, I'm trying to remember if there was any. I mean, if there was, I definitely would have sanded it just to get it, you know, nice and smooth, but I'm almost thinking there wasn't really a residue. Thankfully, that's always nice. Allison Griffin says, I just want to know if I can paint with a brush because I don't have a spray painter, and I do have an old dresser that's similar to this, but I was just going to paint it with a brush and then use the wax. What is the difference between the two methods? Absolutely, you can paint with a brush. In fact, I even sometimes just prefer that way. I don't know, I guess I'm old-fashioned, but I even kind of like to see brush strokes. I think, especially on an old piece, it kind of gives it that old look, you know, the antique look. And during the winter month that I, you know, can't really go out on the driveway and spray paint here in Ohio, I will definitely use a brush indoors, and a roller too, you know, works just as well. So there's really no difference as far as, for me, it's quicker with a sprayer, and you can get a nice even coat too, maybe more so than a brush, but again, I kind of like the brush strokes sometimes. Cheryl B says, do you use more or less paint with the sprayer? I would say less because I thin it down just a bit, and when you apply it, it really just gives a really thin layer, whereas if you'd brush or roll, you're probably, you know, applying it a little thicker. So I definitely say it probably saves on paint to use a sprayer. Jenny Lynn says, I noticed that you don't get a lot of overspray on the inside of the drawers. Can you share how you keep that from happening? In the past, I knew this piece, the owner of the piece had talked about possibly redoing the inside, you know, relining it with a different contact paper, so I wasn't just overly careful. But if I do want to be really careful with the inside, I have already taken like shrink wrap or just paper and tape and just kind of, or newspaper, and covered the drawer, you know, kind of wrapped it around the front part of the drawer, just so when I sprayed the fronts, it wouldn't, you know, the overspray wouldn't land inside the drawer. But I also have learned that you can kind of hold your sprayer a certain way that doesn't happen, kind of at an angle, kind of away from that opening. So Dawn says, how do you not get overspray on your clothes? Thank you for sharing your gifts and talents with us. I don't know, I hardly get paint on myself when I spray. When I brush and roll, probably more so. I think that's a little messier actually, but again, I just try to watch, and then usually I'm outside and I try to stand away from like the breeze or the way I'm painting. I try to get the breeze to kind of take my paint away from myself, mainly so I don't breathe it in and then get it all over myself too. But it's just like a fine mist that comes out of that sprayer, and it's not a wide mist. It's kind of narrow, and you can kind of aim it where you want it to be, and that's where it'll land for the most part. Two Rivers Crafts says, wonderful video as always, Mary. Thank you. May I ask what kind of camera you use for filming? We run a small craft business and would like to add some videos. Sure, I have the Canon Rebel T6i. Just love it. It's worked very well for me. I have two lenses that I use. One of them is a Tamron lens. It's the better lens, but it's really heavy. I actually sometimes get sore shoulders from holding it. I know it sounds wimpish, but it works awesome for, you know, photography, but just for a video like this, I think just the kit lens works really well. So Diana Long Henry says, do you have any tips for how to get one too many coats of paint off of door hinges and hardware? I've dealt with that already with old furniture, and I know there's something you can soak it in. Right now I'm just blank. I can't think of the name, but I've done it in the past a few times where I've soaked hardware in it, and it actually it'll take your paint off for the most part, and you can kind of shine it up again. I'll try to get the name up on the screen because I know there's something out there for that. Cindy Edwards asks or says, to all of you hurt because this piece was painted, please note Mary's professionalism. Her client wanted the piece painted, period, end of story. Thanks, Cindy, for that. I appreciate it, but I was fine with people not agreeing with me for painting it. We all are allowed to have our own opinions on things, but yeah, it wasn't my piece I just painted it what my client wanted me to paint it. I don't consider myself a pro though, but anyone can paint a piece of furniture, but I honestly probably would have painted it too. I just did not really like that orangish glossy sheen. I just have seen too much of that all my life, and I just think paint does wonders. You still have the furniture. It didn't change. Well, it changed looks, but you still have the same wood and the same you know, functions, and it looks better to me. But I realize we all have different opinions, and I totally respect that. I have already you know, not painted pieces of furniture where I just thought it's way too pretty to paint. Like, I get that, but I guess we all have, you know, different tastes, and that's fine. The next questions are from the Cameo 4 video. Coral Webb says, hi Mary, I got the Cameo 4 at the beginning of the year, and it was the first cutting machine I've ever used. I'm by no means tech savvy at all and really struggled to work it out. Can you please tell me if the 4 is a lot more complicated than the earlier models, and would it be easier to use? This video was helpful, thanks. I think I have the 3, which many of you probably know that. I've had the 3 for a couple years, the Cameo 3, and I just recently purchased the Cameo 4. And as far as complicated, I'd say they're just the same. I don't think there's a difference in that. I know when I got the 3, I was kind of intimidated too to begin with, but for years I had been hand painting my signs, bent over with carbon paper and just carefully tracing and then taking that off and then painting in those letters, and just the stiff shoulders I got from doing that. I was so determined. I knew this machine would be the answer to so many things, and it has been. I guess I just didn't let myself be intimidated by it. I just looked up tutorials until I had it figured out, but I realized not everybody is, you know, I'm probably as stubborn as I am, but I'm sure, yeah, there's so many tutorials out there. If you have any questions, you can always just type it in and you will find answers, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure if I can figure it out, anyone can. I'm not, I mean, I've worked a lot more with, you know, tech stuff than I ever did in my life, but I'm by no means a pro or anything. But I just hope you get it figured out, because it's worth it. I mean, these machines have changed my life already. Ryan and Kristen Schmidt says, this was so helpful, Mary. Thank you, Mary. Do you always have to use a matte one cutting, or does it go matteless cutting also? It goes matteless cutting also. I have a video on, I'll try to link it up above or down below or somewhere, that I did like a large cutting, like a sign. I made a sign where if you do, you know, anything bigger than 12 inches, of course you need to go without the mat. So I think in there I kind of explain it. Cottage Conservator says, thanks Mary, curious what the differences are between your new Cameo and the one you've had for a while. Love your videos. Thank you. Again, I don't think there's so much difference. One big difference though is not on how it works, but how it sounds. I think the Cameo 4 is a bit noisier than the 3, or just a different type of noise. I mean, we've gotten kind of used to it, but to begin with it was maybe almost annoying, but as long as it keeps cutting that vinyl, I'm not going to complain. But as far as, you know, the software, we use the same software as the Cameo 3. And as far as, you know, loading, I think some of the loading kind of improved on the Cameo 4. And I have said this before, but I feel like I'm still just using basic functions on these machines. I know they can do so much more, but they just do what I want them to do, so I don't really ask more of them, I guess. But maybe the Cameo 4 does actually do more than the 3, you know, on some different, you know, functions that I never use. So I guess I probably wouldn't be the one to ask about that. The next question here is, why do you choose Cameo and not Cricut? I'm not sure. I never actually had a Cricut, so I guess I should give it a shot. Maybe I'd even like it better. I can't imagine, but someone had advised me to get the Cameo 3 a couple years ago, and that's what I did, and I've just never looked back. But I should probably compare the two, because I get a lot of questions like that. The next questions are from the Dresser Makeover. I have a few of them here to answer. Shifty Lizard Store says, why not refinish it as a dresser? I think I had kind of explained that in the video, but you could definitely still use it as a dresser without those drawers even. You could put pretty baskets in there. That's actually a good idea. I just now thought of that, but I thought again, I had done islands like that in the past. I thought it would just make a cute island for someone's small kitchen, but there's no reason you couldn't still use it for a dresser. But those drawers were really stuck hard. That's why I took those out. Tracy Martinez says, hi Mary, love your channel. Would you ever consider doing an episode on how you shoot your videos, how you set up the camera, etc.? I'll think about that one. I've never really thought of doing that. I'm never sure, you know, would some of you be interested in that or not? Of course, I watch some videos on that, but I usually go to Think Media is a good channel. Sean Cannell, he's really good at explaining things like that. I've actually gotten a lot of inspiration from him already. And there's some others out there too that you know, are really good with that sort of thing. I guess I don't consider myself a pro at this stuff. I just kind of, you know, start recording and hope for the best, I guess. So the last questions here are from the Trash to Treasure video. Joe Sanders is asking, why do you use 2 drills? 2 drills are the best thing ever, guys. First of all, they often come in a set of 2. That's how mine were. And then if you are pre-drilling, like if you're making little holes for your screws so your wood doesn't split, that way you have your drill bit in the one drill and then the screw part in the other drill. And it's so handy you don't have to change them around. Estrella Perez says, Mary, how do you dry flowers? Mine get moldy and never look good. I'm probably not the right person to ask that, because I've had luck with drying flowers that they actually turned out pretty good. And then sometimes I'll do the same thing and they don't turn out, so I'm not sure. I think it sometimes depends on the plant, and it kind of depends on when you cut them off too, I think. But for hydrangeas, I know I've had some luck with just drying them in a vase. Like I'll add just a little bit of water and they're pretty for a while, and then they dry out and they actually kind of stay nice sometimes. And I've also actually hung them upside down in kind of a dark, dry place where they've turned out not too bad too. Sometimes I'll refresh them with a coat of paint. I don't know, have some of you ever done that, but I used to have pretty blue hydrangeas, and I was able to find a spray paint that matched that color, and after they were dry, they weren't quite as vibrant anymore, and I just quickly gave them a light coat of spray paint, and that kind of, it made them still look natural and pretty. And then for roses, I know I have had some luck with drying them also upside down in a dry, dark place. We have a room in our basement. We call it the furnace room, but it's really dry in there and dark, so I think that's probably a good room to do the drying in. And as far as them getting moldy, I wonder if maybe you have them in too much of a damp place maybe. I don't know. I guess I'm not a professional when it comes to, I'm sure there's other people that could probably answer that, and feel free to answer in the comments below if you have any suggestions for that. That might be helpful to someone. So I'm looking over the last questions and comments here that she stuck in here are from the fact that I killed a garter snake while filming my last video. Hated to do that, which I mentioned that on the video. I don't like to kill anything. In fact, I'm known to, I will rescue spiders out of our shower and bugs before they go down the drain. I just feel bad for little critters like that. I have a hard time killing things. But if I'm in a building, you know, working in this case, and a snake starts to slither inside, and I know there's just tons of places where it could hide, I will probably get rid of it before I let it do that. If I see it out in my gardens, I'll usually let them go, because I know they're good for the gardens, and like many of you said, they can't really help it that they're here. You know, why kill them? It seems so heartless. Often I'll just kind of be in denial that I even see it and just kind of hope it disappears. But again, if I'm in a building and I did try to, I guess I didn't explain in the video, but my cat was kind of, you know, chasing the snake into the building, and I just used that little case that I was redoing in my Trash and Treasure video, and I just flung it at the snake just to stop it from crawling inside. And all I saw was just a flailing snake on the other side of that box and some rustles of leaves, and in my mind I thought it probably crawled back into the woods. So I gingerly stepped forward and to the opening of the shop, and I looked out, peered around the corner, and I didn't see any movement or anything. I thought it kind of funny because I almost thought I'd still see it slithering away if it actually was back in the woods, but I thought, well, it's probably just holding still. There was lots of greenery and underbrush there. I thought it could be hiding. Little did I know, right beside my foot, underneath that case, was the snake. And I later was working. I just kind of left everything the way it was and continued my work. And later when I looked out, it was crawling out from under the case and halfway into the shop, kind of around the corner. And I just did the first thing that came to mind, because I did not want that snake in my shop, because there's tons of wood piles in there and places it could hide, and I knew I could never be able to work in there knowing there's a snake in there. Plus I have all my furniture and my white cottage shop on the other side, and it could easily have crawled in there too, and there's just no way I wanted a snake in that shop. So I killed it with the 2x4. Did I feel sad about it? Yes, but I knew that's what I had to do. So that's why I did it. I have a comment here. Ryden Woods says, "I'm sorry you felt you needed to kill the garter snake. I felt sorry too. They are harmless. Better to have relocated the snake than to kill one of God's creations. So sad to hear. So sad to hear that. I was enjoying your videos, but now I can't anymore." Totally understand that. I'm not offended in the least. I get it, but again, right there, that's what I had to do, and I don't really regret it, because again, I probably wouldn't venture into that shop if I know there was actually a snake in there. And I did give it plenty of chance to crawl back into the woods. So I hope you guys got something out of the video. I feel a little guilty. I feel like I didn't quite give it my all here, but maybe next time I'll have more time to kind of go into more detail with some of the questions. I do appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for that, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video. Bye!